Hello, welcome to this video. Today I'm going to talk about my Homelab build. I was thinking about doing this project long ago and finally I did it. I'm doing it actually. Um, the idea was to have a computer that does not only work as a computer per se, but does other stuff also. So let's jump into it. Homelab idea. My idea was to emulate a real-life VPS by virtualizing machines. This means that I want to be able to run services locally in an emulated machine in order to create something like the service you would get when buying a VPS service, like having different instances of Ubuntu server or maybe a Fedora server installed and running very specific services. And by that I mean that I want to make it very modular. That means I don't know, having some media server and the free NAS, but every virtualized machine to be in charge of one specific task, so I can isolate the services pretty well. Then I want a main Arch installation as the super user OS. This means that the Arch installation will have access to everything. Basically, the virtualized machines will be running on this Arch installation. And also I want to have a clean Windows installation. I put clean in quote marks because it's a long time ago that I don't install Windows on my machine. I did install it in other people's machine, and I did use Windows um, sometimes in my daily, but I do not have a Windows installation of my own long ago. Probably it's been more than 5 years or so. Um, I did have Windows installed in virtual machines lately, but not uh, as a raw installation. So I don't know how can an installation be well configured to match the hardware, or even if I need to do that, um, or if I have to only install it and that's it, or if there are some particular configurations that would make my hardware take will make my installation take good advantage of the software. And I want to isolate disk partitions, mainly because I don't want Windows screwing up with everything. I want to have Windows separately, and my Arch installation and the files and the VMs have them separate um, between them also. The hardware I used for this setup. For this setup I did not buy a graphics card because the graphic stuff that I would do won't go past gaming on not old but not that new games, not that intensive games. So I think that with the processor, with the EPU that I got, I'll be covered with that. Uh, in the future, I of course will buy some graphics card, but I don't need to do that right now. Also, I know RAM is little for this, so I'll go ahead and list all the hardware. For the motherboard, I got an Asus B350MA, which is an AM4 chipset. I read it goes well with this processor, the Ryzen 5 2400G. Then for the AC power, I went with this one, LNZ SX650FS. It is a national brand, an Argentinian brand, LNZ. For the RAM, I went with 2 sticks of HyperX Fury Black DDR4 sticks RAM, 4 gigabytes. I know it's not much for all the virtualization I mean to do, but of course I won't be running all the VMs all together, and for the games I'll be running, I think that's okay. I saw some reviews, some benchmarks, and some videos basically about this exact setup, and I saw GTA 5 running at 30 FPS or so, 35 in and I think with that I'll be okay. So later of course I will upgrade the RAM. First comes the RAM, then the graphics card. Then I chose a Kingston A400 to 240 gigabyte SSD for the main operating system, where the Arch installation will go. And for all the other stuff, I have 2 1 terabyte WD blue hard disk drives. I also have a 500 gigs disk that I'm not listing here because I found it after doing this, and I will be using that to install Windows separately. Then for keyboard and mouse, I went through Alloy Gaming keyboard and a Pulsifier FPS mouse. The emulation of real life BPS. Having the idea to have local virtualized machine emulating servers by running specific services like LAMP, like media server, maybe Plex or Envy, some FTP or NAS file management, torrenting VM, a database VM. So the idea is to make specific modules. I don't know if this LAMP installation will be only one with different Apache sites, let's say, or if I will have different instances of LAMP installations running different applications or anything that I need. Of course, the database server, I will call it server. Of course, it's not. It's an emulated server, a VM, will be apart from that. So this is not a LAMP installation. It's like an Apache installation. Okay, there probably are more of this, but at least this is what I have thought for now. Maybe some Git server also. So this would be the work distribution. I will have the main Arch system to virtualize the VPSs. I think I will be using libvirt for that. I think I don't have very clearly understood the relation between libvirt and KVM. I don't know if KVM it's a front end for libvirt. I don't know. I also have the VirtualBox option, which I won't be using. There's also Kimu, but I thought I read some bad stuff about it. I don't know. I thought it was slow, but maybe for my purpose will serve just fine. I have to choose between all these virtualization platforms available. And for the VPS, what I mentioned earlier, these are my ideas: to have a LAMP installation or multiple LAMP installations, a Git server. I have to investigate on that because I don't have any idea, but I think it will be easy, just setting up a service, torrenting VPS, some file management VPS, a media server, and labrats. With this I mean literally virtualized machines that only serve as testing software and doing some configurations and so on. Also I will be having some Windows VPSs, of course, not a VPS, but VMs. So yeah, and then I will have an isolated Windows machine in a separate drive. I plan to have all of this, the upper part, as ext4 file system, so Windows can't access even if it wanted to. I know I'm being pretty harsh on Windows, and not only because the Windows hate is real, but I had horrible experiences in the past. I know that maybe right now isn't that bad as before, like with Windows XP or so, but I don't know. I just want to keep my system secure. My storage setup. This was kind of hard for me to think, to define, because I had storage and I don't know how to set it up. All I knew is that I was going to use this Kingston SSD for the main operating system, but I did not know um, how to set up these 3 drives. So this is the Kingston 240 gigs SSD. This is the 500 gigs where Windows will be installed, and these are the 1 terabyte drives. So this will be my setup. As I mentioned here, I'll have the Arch installation and the virtualization program in an ext4 file system in the SSD drive. Over one of the 1 terabyte drives, I'll separate that in 2 partitions. Both of them, I think they will be ext4. And for the first partition, I will have the virtual disk images and the virtualized machine configurations. That means that over here I will have the whole virtual machine aside from the virtualization program. So over here will go all the VPS running services and the RAD labs. And over the other partition of this drive, I will have, I think, I don't have this very defined yet. I don't know how I will approach it, but my idea is to have an automated VM, another virtualized machine that handles the logs, the backups, and snapshots of the virtualized machines and of some documents. Like, I want everything to point, all the VMs and maybe even Windows, but that won't be possible if this is ext4, to have the login here in one place. And by automated machine, I mean to have a virtual machine that has kind of access to the other VMs and can handle the log of that VMs here. Or I don't know if that will be a particular configuration of the VMs itself and I don't need to automate this. But by automated, I mean to do some backups like monthly or so of my documents. So let's jump to this drive, 1 terabyte drive. Here I will have all the files, that's like raw files, like pictures, documents, movies, TV shows, configuration files, and also some code backups. This will be ext4 also, I guess. I'm asking here if it will be an TFS, because I don't know if in the future I will want to be able to connect this drive to anything and use it. I like the idea of having it resguarded by some Linux installation and not be and Windows not being able to access this drive, because here will reside all my data. And also for backup, I think I'll only do backup of document, configuration, and code. I won't be backing up the media ever, I think, for now. and I have to decide whether to set it up as ext4 or NTFS. And for the last drive, of course it will be NTFS. It will have the Windows installation isolated, and as you can see here, the main Arch installation will have access to the 1 TB that handles the VMs, to the 1 TB that handles the files, and to the 500 gigs installation. Here's a dotted line because I don't mean to use this path because I want Windows isolated, but regardless, Arch will have access to this. And the access for this drive goes from the automated VMs to the other virtualized machine for the login and snapshots, or the other way around, I don't know, but they will connect. And the same process that handles the logs and backups will also have access only to the documents folder as read-only. Problems I had with this installation. With Linux, I had a problem at the boot time of the USB installation drive and also at the installation, and that was that the X server was not loading properly. And in Windows, I was unable to install the graphics driver. The X server not loading on Linux. I searched this over the internet. I was only getting a blank screen and I didn't know what was happening very much, so I did a lot of search, and with some debugging of my own, I managed to find that it was an X server problem, that it wasn't being able to run. So a lot of people suggested to pass some kernel parameters in the startup, and I tried all of these ones. No mode set, that would give me a bad resolution. AMD GPU.dc equals 1, this one wouldn't work for me. Mode prop blacklist something, I don't remember what this value was, but it was for blacklisting the AMD GPU graphics module. And the last one did work for me, and that is IOMMU equals PT, and this is what this does is to disable the IOMMU bypass using IOMMU for PCI devices. I don't know what that means, but it just worked, and I was able to boot and install Arch easily. I want to mention that this was my first time installing Arch, and it was so easy. I thought it was going to be a lot harder, but it was very easy. So if you're thinking of doing that and you're afraid and you maybe install Arch through Manjaro or through Artergos, I recommend you to try and install it as a raw Arch installation, because following the guide it's just so easy. So the installation went fine with this parameter IOMMU equals PT, but the problem persisted over the installation, meaning that now the problem resides in my installation and not in the bootable USB drive. So the same parameter wasn't working, the IOMMU bypass, and I tried all the kernel parameters suggested before, these ones, and anything seemed to work. So what did work? Of course, this I found it in the official Arch documentation, so you'll probably always end up here, and the solution will probably always be here. So I have to keep reminding me of this, but I never do. That first look up in the documentation, on the official documentation, and then look it up on the forums, because here, like 99% of the time, the Arch official documentation has the solution, or at least has the explanation on what's happening, and that always makes the process of debugging and solving very easy. So always head first to the official Arch documentation. So what did fix the issue was to another kernel mode setting was to add the AMD GPU and the Radeon modules to the init CPIO. So you just have to add this line to this file, to etc, making it cpio.conf, regenerate the init RAM file system, and this worked. But after doing this, I had configured some stuff and installed some packages that I thought they were going to fix this before knowing of this solution. So my installation wasn't clean anymore. I wanted to be very pure with this installation and only have what I need, because I want to have a stable system, and not only a stable system but also to emulate a real case server setup. So I did want to do this as cleanly as possible, so I did reinstall Arch again and did this workaround. I did this solution when installing the system before the first reboot, sorry, and that is at the point of Arch rooting to MNT after installing some packages, or before, I don't remember. I did this and installed Arch accordingly, and everything worked perfect and I was fine. As for Windows, I wasn't able to install these drivers for Windows, and they were the latest AMD drivers. I didn't thought I was going to have problems with Windows. I thought it was going to be 1, 2, 3, download the official driver and the latest, install it, and I'd be up and running, but no, problems happened. So the drivers were not being loaded correctly. I don't know why. They were not being recognized. You can see here that we have the generic PMP monitor display adapter, and here we have a chip type of Atom BIOS, which goes to 200 and 2010. I don't know if that's updated or not, but it wasn't working. Games were not loading fine. Even videos at 180p in YouTube had some drop frames, so clearly there was a problem. I tried uninstalling and installing older versions of this driver, but that didn't work. I read that first you have installed the chipset driver, then the graphics driver. That didn't work also. And then I read that you have to have Windows updated to the latest version. So I'm currently downloading update 1803, and of course I think that will solve the issue. I read that did solve the issue, so I'm hoping that it does. I'm pretty sure that I have to uninstall the driver again, and so on. The resolution and left steps. Okay, one resolution was that I thought I wasn't going to have problems with Windows, as I mentioned earlier, but as I wrote here, I can't blame outdated software. So if the problem is that I don't have the latest Windows update, I can blame that. It's expected. That's why software updates happen. They happen to make things work, and I cannot go ahead and say, hey, this is shitty, this isn't working, because I don't have the latest update. So I'm not blaming me either, but let's just see what happens after installing the latest Windows update. Also, just a comment, I hate the idea of Windows as a service. The idea is fine, but the Windows update process, it's awful. Like, it doesn't give you any information at all, and more than once I found myself looking at a stack installing update, and had to restart some services. I mean, come on, Windows, this is your software, it has to be working fine. And it's also an update software for the whole system, so I expect it to work fine and not be this crap, you know? Then the Arch installation was so easy. As I mentioned, this was my first time installing Arch as Arch and not through Antergos or Manjaro, and it was so easy. So I do recommend doing this. It's very easy. Just follow the guide, and it's a 1, 2, 3 setup. You will be up and running very fast. Then, as for the configuration of my system, the installation of the VMs software and the VMs themselves, I am waiting on that because first I want to have Windows working properly, and then I'll add it to a grab entry to the Arch installation. So when I have the both of the systems running properly, then I'll start the configuration, personalization, installation of the VPSs, and dump my files to the drives, because currently I have only 1 TB as an external drive that has all my documents and media and configurations, and I have to do like a transpose of that files to my new setup. Okay, that was it. You can check. I'll probably make a blog post on this on my blog, and if not, you can even check it because I have other stuff there that is cool to see. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye bye.